So I'm currently planning my trip back home for a couple of weeks to see my mom, to see my dad, to see my dog, to see my friends. And of course, I'm feeling really excited about. It's always nice to see the people you grew up around. But at the same time, I found myself being really hesitant to book that flight. I would just always find an excuse like, it's not Tuesday today, and Tuesday is known to be the best day to book a flight, as if I've ever used that life hack. Or I don't know, my paycheck is only coming next week, I want to keep some money. And I don't know, I don't have time. Oh, I just want to doom scroll instead of, planning something. And so it got me thinking, like, why do I keep postponing it? Why do I procrastinate so much? Because it's such a small task to do. And sometimes it's really difficult to do something small, but when you don't have a specific plan for it. But here it's super easy. I've done it like 100 times. You just go on that website, you pick the date, you pick the flight you prefer, like the time, and you're done. And then I started... I wanted to explore this feeling and to just better understand what's behind that, what's the psychology behind that. And eventually I had this picture in my mind from my previous trip, and I knew that was the reason. And the picture was the morning I was heading to the airport back to what I call home now. And my mother and I, we were having a cup of tea in the morning like we normally used to do. And I just couldn't look my mother in the eyes. I couldn't just look at her because I knew what I would meet was sorrow. So much sadness and this scream like, don't go. I'm feeling a bit emotional about this. And so yeah, this feeling actually inspired this episode when I was exploring what I really want to talk about. And I think the general topic of this episode, the big idea of this episode, will be growing pains and the moments when growth feels like betrayal to your mother, to your friends, to your partner, and to yourself. I want to explore this, and I want to share some of my experiences because I feel like so many people my age would actually recognize themselves in what I'm about to say and feel seen. So yeah, I think off we go. So to give it a start, I want to say that I personally had this theme of growing pains but tied to your family orbiting around me for as long as I can remember myself, actually growing as a person, not physically, but changing as a person. I had a semi-absent father. I had a father figure, but I just wasn't too exposed to him, and he also wasn't too exposed to me. I would see him every 3-4 months, and that was it. And when on the parent side, when you see your child that rarely, the changes that the child is undergoing are more vivid, are more evident than when your child is growing up next to you. And so when I was around, I think it was on my 16th birthday, my dad came to, give me a present or something. We were just in his car and we were just talking, and I said something, something that didn't sound like I'm a child. It was the first sign of me becoming an adult. A young adult, but still, like, I was not a child anymore, you know? And it was not a big thing, it was just something, I cannot quite remember it, but what I do remember really well is the look on my dad's face and how he almost started crying. Like, he just pushed it back because he didn't want to cry in front of me, but I could see it. He was about to cry. And so our father-daughter birthday date finished real quick after that. And I could see, like, as I was walking away from his car, I could see him actually crying in it. And I was so confused, like, what did I say? But then I gave it some thinking and I understood what was the reason. What was the reason? Anyway, sorry. And that was the first time I had a taste of seeing your parent grieving the version of you you've outgrown, which is a totally normal thing. I'm not trying to picture it as something bad or something that should not be visible or shown to a child. But what I'm saying is that in many cases it's just as painful to the child as it is to the parent. It was just something I noticed, and it didn't like set me spiraling into guilt or whatever. And while this example with my dad that I gave you, you know, it's something natural. Like, yes, I grow up and I change and I get more mature and I sound different and I look different. It's like, yeah, it's a totally natural thing. The example I started the episode with my mother, leaving my hometown, leaving my country, was totally my choice. And in the same time, it means I made this choice to leave my mother behind, which is why she feels the way she feels. And I have to tell you, I've never felt more guilty of anything in my life. I was really excited to go back to Istanbul, where I now live, and to see my boyfriend and to see my friends and to just get back to my routine, you know? But the entire time I was in the taxi to go to the airport, the entire flight almost, I spent crying and blaming myself, like, why would I make that decision? Why would I do this to my mother? But at the same time, we both understand that this decision wasn't about her or our relationship. It was about me and my growth, and it was just honoring my path as a woman, as a human being, as a person. And at the same time, we both know why I made that decision, and my mother and I, we perfectly understand how happy I am here compared to how stuck I felt when I was living back home. And, you know, it's just like, I am better here. I'm a better person. I'm a better woman here. But it doesn't make it any easier. And this is exactly what Carl Jung, one of my favorite philosophers and psychologists ever, described as self-individuation and the consequences you have to face when you step on the path to your higher self. To give you a little bit of explanation, self-actualization is the idea introduced by Carl Jung, which refers to reaching your highest potential as a person, and basically your final goal and the actually key to happiness, essentially. And another angle he also opened and developed to to this term is that self-actualization is basically a moral need. And this idea doesn't just exist in Jung's work. Actually, if we take the hierarchy of needs by Maslow, we will also find that self-actualization, it will be like the top of the pyramid. And if we know something about needs, they need to be fulfilled in order for a person to be happy. And while it sounds really exciting, like, growing, evolving, becoming your highest, most integrated self and being just so happy in your own authenticity, it does come with a price. The journey itself is not the easiest, but also it comes with a price. And the price is burying so many old versions of yourself that you just start losing count at some point. And moreover, always existing in this state of liminality, which I guess comes from anthropology, and it's the state in between, the worst thing ever, when you're stuck in this in between, on your way from your old self to your new self, and this going in a loop. And to make it even harder, we all have roles in relationships, be it romantic relationships, friendships, or like parent-child relationship. And being on that journey of self-actualization, we do not only shed and bury our versions of ourselves, we're also breaking these implicit contracts we have with the other person, breaking their expectations about who we are and who we will be, not just to them, but as we are. And this is exactly why it feels like betrayal or letting someone down on your way up to the top of your hierarchy of needs. And while the idea of having these implicit contracts with other people sounds more or less common and like comprehensible, there is another sort of contract that you probably found or are finding or will find yourself breaking. And that's the contract you have with yourself. And the paradox here is that to stay loyal to yourself, you have to betray yourself. And I know that sounds a bit confusing and maybe a little vague, so I will give you an example of how it played out in my life and in my experience, in my relationship with myself. And then I will just dig a bit more into it. So I spent 3 years of my life grieving a person who was not actually dead. I was grieving, let's say, our connection. I paused, I put my life on pause. I didn't want to meet new people. I dedicated myself and whatever I did and whatever direction I was trying to take with my life, I just dedicated it to this feeling, to grieving and just existing in this feeling. After 3 years, it was finally time to move on. And moving on from something or someone often feels just waking up one morning, or I don't know, having your lunch and just it just strikes you. I let it go. And when I had that moment, instead of relief, I felt really scared. And it's really interesting because when we are grieving something, We just want this to end as soon as possible. We want to stop crying, we want to stop thinking about it, we want to stop dreaming about it and waking up in tears again. But I don't know if it's just me, but this is how it happened. I just was so scared that it was over. Why? Well, I would say there are many reasons to it. But one of them was, for me, moving on meant betraying the version of me that had so much love and so much patience and so much hope in her heart. And just, I felt like I was rejecting all those feelings, and for a second I thought I was becoming heartless. I was losing this vulnerability and my talent. I'm not going to be humble on that, for loving. And I thought that was it. Daria, as I knew her, she just didn't exist anymore. That was exactly a moment of liminality where I just shedded my old self, but I didn't quite step in the new version of myself. And while this state, like in between state, is very fertile, it's so fucking uncomfortable. And in that exact moment, you find yourself grieving the grief. You find yourself being disoriented. And this is what scares us the most. I had to sit with that feeling. Actually, my favorite thing ever is to sit with my feelings. Ask me about my hobby, sitting with my feelings. And after some time, it didn't happen overnight, of course, and this liminality state, it doesn't go away really quickly. Sometimes it can last months, if not months, then at least weeks, and some people might be in there for like years. But in my case, I spent a couple of weeks thinking about it and just getting familiar with this feeling all over again. And what I came to was, by moving on, I was not rejecting love. I was just letting it expand beyond what it once was and how it looked, in a sense that I wasn't erasing it from my life, and with that I wasn't erasing my old self. Instead, I was incorporating it in what I'm becoming and giving it just enough space to exist and breathe, but still giving the stage, the floor, to what was coming, if that makes sense. And while it sounds beautiful and so romantic even, it's not. I think it's actually selfish. But I also think there is nothing wrong about being selfish. Of course, there is time and place for everything, but this is the idea of self-actualization that I stand by, and I believe in it sacredly. It's the bittersweet truth. Growth will almost always create a form of loss. But without it, it just wouldn't be possible. Maybe selfish is what we are meant to be if we want to self-actualize and be happy. But I don't mean never sharing the last piece of cake with someone you love, or not letting a person pass in traffic when they clearly have somewhere to go and are in a rush. But what I mean is that maybe we should live by one simple truth that I hear from every corner, you know? Maybe we are meant to be selfish, as in choosing ourselves and what feels good for us. That will cost someone's smile, someone's contentment, maybe even a relationship. But if I know something about life, choosing yourself is never a wrong choice. It might not always be the right choice, but it's never wrong, if that makes sense. What I mean is that being selfish in your life choices is basically the idea of self-actualization. So I already said that, but I want to say it again in a more generalized way. The thing is, no matter if that's a job, a person, a relationship, a city, or a version of yourself that you're outgrowing, letting it go and leaving it behind in some way doesn't mean you've killed the meaning it once had. Instead, it means you've woven it into you so it can walk and move forward with you. And if that means being selfish, I mean choosing the path that's yours, that leads you to you, and not the one that keeps everyone else comfortable, it's not a flaw. That's basically self-actualization. And that's the whole point of being here. And I know it will be hella uncomfortable looking my mom in the eyes when I leave again. But it's a discomfort I can live with, unlike the regret of staying. So, as I'm wrapping this up, I think I'll just go and book that flight. And I hope it's not the case, but I'm pretty sure it is. And you have something, someone, or somewhere you're still holding on to, you're still staying loyal to. And if you needed a sign to betray it finally, this is for you. Well, it was a very reflective one, and if even for a second you felt seen and understood, that would make me really, really happy. It would make me even happier if you let me know about it. But you don't have to. But that would make me really happy. So yeah, thank you for being here, and I really enjoyed doing it, and I hope you enjoyed listening to it, and I'll see you next time. Bye!